Let's further unpack the state of the U.S. job market with Daniil Manaenkov, lead economic forecaster at the University of Michigan in the wonderful city of Ann Arbor. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
It is a better than expected jobs report. What are the key takeaways from these figures?
I would dispute that a little bit. It was probably on par with what markets expected, give or take a few tens of thousands of jobs. And given how the revisions have been to recent numbers, it's pretty much what was expected. So it's pretty good. It means that the momentum in the economy is pretty strong, coming into a pretty significant headwind that we expect over the next several months, largely from a still pretty high inflation that is hurting real purchasing power for most people.
Daniil, is it hard to get too excited about this considering inflation is at the level it is at?
I mean, it depends on where you are in the economy. If you are somebody who recently got a nice pay increase, you're probably feeling good about it, but most of the people are probably feeling pretty stressed about inflation because everybody sees inflation every day, and it's basically one of the top problems that people are bringing up when they talk about the state of the economy and the state of the country as a whole.
You may not be able to see our screen, but we're seeing some construction, some service jobs. What industries are driving this recovery? And of course, which ones are still struggling?
Right. So lately, most of the rebound or recovery was in the service jobs. So as COVID, at least for now, moves to the rearview mirror, there's a lot of job gains in the service sector, as a lot of big businesses are bringing back their employees more or at larger percentage of time full-time in the office. There'll be demand for a lot of support jobs, so restaurants in downtown areas. There's a lot of cleaning, a lot of other services. So basically, a lot from the services. What has struggled a little bit in the last few months were the transportation jobs, and it's probably understandable given that the price of gasoline and diesel ramped up quite significantly in recent months.
And you also mentioned that some families are seeing a little bit more in their paychecks. We saw that wages are rising as employees try to woo workers. Do you see that trend continuing?
So the wages have been rising, but there was a discrepancy between a leisure and hospitality sector, basically restaurant and hotel workers, who are seeing wage gains in excess of inflation. So for them, they were gaining like 10 to 12%, and it's probably likely to taper off as more and more people come back to the labor market. But for everybody else, there's probably going to be pressure on wages. I doubt it's going to keep up with inflation for the next several months. So it's good news that people are getting raises, but overall, on balance, they're still losing purchasing power, which is concerning.
You know, and also it has been a tough year, tough couple of years for just about everybody, and a lot of people are kind of rethinking the way they live. And we know a lot of American workers are reluctantly heading back into the office, and some are saying, look, this is time for the great resignation. How does this continue to play out?
So I think we have seen a significant ramp up in the participation rate. So many people who were on sidelines seem to be heading back to the labor market. So I'm not exactly, I don't have a good story on the great resignation and to what extent this is happening and what's affecting it. What I'm seeing is that the number of hours a lot of people in the service sector have been working over the past several months is actually declining, which tells me that there are many people who are returning to the job market. So it's good for the economy because more jobs means more income, but people who enjoyed having the bargaining power to ask for higher wages will probably see that a little bit dissipate. So it was an abnormal situation. So a lot of people in the service sector were working, 10% more than they normally do. So that's sort of probably put some stress on them, but they probably enjoyed the extra wages. So it's a mix.
Daniil, not a lot of time here, but I want to talk about the news coming out of Staten Island, a big victory for labor unions. What do these recent victories with Amazon workers tell us about the future of the U.S. labor market?
So The bigger story is that a lot of businesses are trying to diversify their supply chains and make them more resilient to future shocks. And that means having a larger percentage of production happening domestically. And that basically means that US labor is in better position to bargain than it had been over the prior years. And I expect a lot more sort of labor type news coming over the next several months. For example, a lot of port workers who've been working nonstop over the pandemic trying to import a lot more goods than they're used to, were basically working themselves overtime and under a lot of stress. A lot of contracts are coming up for renewal, so expect pretty contentious labor negotiations for a lot of West Coast ports over the next several months. And that's just one example.
Yeah,